Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about helping those of you with uneven, droopy, downturned eyes. I've done a video about hooded and downturned eyes in the past, but this video is more focused on little tips and tricks and things that you might not have thought of that will really help counteract the downturned motion of your eyes, not motion, the downturned look of your eye. It's help it look more lifted, help you figure out how to make your eyes even. Yeah, just a bunch of tricks, tips and tricks that I have discovered over the years in dealing with my own struggles, my own challenging eyes. So if you're interested in hearing all about everything, all the information that I have stored about making up downturned or droopy, whatever word you want to use, and or uneven eyes, then please keep on watching. So the reason why I have zoomed in so close is because I want to show you guys what I see when I look at myself in the mirror and how I perceive my eye shape. Now, it doesn't happen all that often, but I do once in a while receive comments on videos that are dedicated to hooded or downturned or droopy eyes that will say, well, you don't even have hooded eyes, or your eyes aren't downturned at all. And I keep reiterating in other videos that there are different levels to a hooded eye. I feel like I have the textbook definition of a hooded eye. Of course, it's not extreme. There are cases that are way more extreme than mine. But if you look at my lids, this is the hood. If your lids are coming down towards your lashes and you have to physically lift the hood to apply shadow or raise your brows to apply your shadow, you have a hooded eyelid. Now, if you are someone who, when you look directly in the mirror, you can see that lid space, but maybe on the sides it's coming down, you might perhaps have a partially hooded eye. But in a classic definition, a hooded eye is when the lid, it hoods over the main, where this part of the eye is hooded over this part of the eye. So it's kind of coming down and hanging along the lashes. Now, as far as unevenness, I do have one that is more hooded than the other. I can do winged eyeliner on this side, no problem, piece of cake. On this side, it hangs a little bit lower down here, so I have a harder time where that wing kind of catches right here. I know you know what I'm talking about if you have a hooded or a downturned eye. It's hard to get this to look nice without a lot of effort. And then as far as downturned eyes, how do you know if you have a downturned eye? Well, once again, I feel like if you just look at my eye shape, it goes up, around, and down. My eyes go straight down on either side. Now, what you need to do to determine if you have a downturned eye, if you're just not sure, is take a picture of your eyes or even look in the mirror and take something that has a straight edge. Even if you took a makeup brush and you placed it on the bridge of your nose between your eyes, if the bottom part of your eye hangs down below this area, you have a downturned eye. So hooded eyes, downturned eyes, uneven eyes, droopy eyes. Let's talk about how to make them look not droopy, not downturned, not hooded, not uneven, to the best of our ability. So we're gonna start off with using a shadow primer. And I talk about primers in pretty much all my videos because it is such an important step for somebody who not only has oily lids, but somebody who has textured lids or somebody who has a hooded lid, where when you apply eyeliner or eyeshadow, that it ends up getting up here where you don't want it. So now this next step might be something you never considered before when trying to make eyes look less droopy and downturned. It's the eyebrow. Now, I had my eyebrows microbladed about a year ago, and when she did it, I feel like she went a little bit too far down on the ends. And what that does is it brings my eyes down even more. So when I do my eyebrows, when I fill in my eyebrows, I try to take the angle out just a little bit here and not so much, and I try to cover up this area right here. So if your brows are headed self, you want to make sure that you've created your arch, or if your brows are more rounded, make sure that they're rounded, but that they come out more towards your temples versus down towards your cheekbones. Now, if you're someone that has a fuller brow, you don't need to do this, but even with the microblading, I still need to fill mine in. So what I do is I start at the arch and I go out towards my temples. So it's just a very little amount that's left under there, and I try to tweeze that just to get rid of it, but I underline the brow. And as you can see, I bring it out towards the temple versus down. So I'm not making it look super weird by taking it straight across. You don't want straight across brows, but getting rid of that little turn at the end will give a little lift to the eye. So again, instead of coming down, I'm bringing it out. So now I've gone and filled in the rest of my brow, and just for reference, I used the Anastasia Brow Wiz in the shade Caramel. So now to further define that angle of the brow, I'm gonna take a little bit of concealer and just, not all the way in, but just underneath the arch and out. And that way, for me at least, I'm able to see any little hairs I need to tweeze. It's the best way for me to see those hairs. So now the first thing I always do in making up my eyes is I set the shadow primer, or if I've gone and put foundation or concealer on my lids, I want to set that with a powder or a powder eyeshadow. So I'm just taking an off-white shade and setting the entire lid. And I'm taking it up to the brow as well. So once the prep has been done, now we can go ahead and start working on making the eye look more lifted and even. So what I showed in another recent video of mine was a technique that some of you were a little surprised by. And what I did in that video is I took an angled brush like this one, and then I took an eyeshadow. I'm just taking a dark brown at the moment, and I went from my lower lash line and created a guide up towards my brow, like so. So from the lower lash line, and then angled it up. Now here's something that I discovered really helps me when I'm doing my eyes or eyeliner. Because of the fact that when I smile, my eyes turn down even more, I want to make sure that the eyeliner isn't too far down so that when I smile, it's not ending up down here, because I've noticed that looks really odd in photos. So now what I do is I smile and mark it. So I know that it's not kind of going down here or down here, that it's still angling up. Try doing this before you even apply your eyeliner. Look into a hand mirror, smile, see how it's turning down there, and make sure that your angle is going up and that it's not curving down into where you're smiling. Now at this point, you can stop and take a selfie using your camera and check to make sure it's even. I take the selfie at the very end of my makeup application, and then I'll kind of go back and tweak things. But if you want to do it every step along the way, that's fine. It only takes a second. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, that's a little strange. I don't really like taking pictures of myself. My husband's gonna think I'm weird. Like, why am I taking photos of myself? But I'm telling you, it is so helpful in judging if your eyeshadow or your eyeliner is even. I promise you, I do it every time, and I always notice little tweaks that I can make to make it perfect. So now that you have this guide, which obviously looks a little weird, you can start building up your eyeshadow look. I'm just gonna do a very basic eye look, something that I would do just day in and day out pretty much. I'm gonna take just a neutral, soft brown shade. This is Creme Brûlée from Makeupgeek. But I'm not sure what brush this is. It's from MAC, but it's a long, fluffy crease brush. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna apply that to my crease using this as the guide as to where to stop. So I'm gonna look straight into the mirror and push into my eye and start moving back and forth without coming down to where my guide is. Once I've done that, then I can raise my brows up and start blending it out and taking it to the end zone. Here is what we're gonna call it, the end zone. Because if you bring it farther down than this, then you're gonna be dragging the eye down. Of course, you can use tape. I've used tape in other videos of mine, and it is helpful where you just take a little bit of Scotch tape, put it on the back of your hand, rip it off so it loses some stickiness, and then apply it to your eye. The only thing is, if you're a more mature woman, if you have a lot of issues with fine lines or deep lines around here, the pulling motion probably isn't the best. So I do recommend just doing this liner as your guide. So now I'm just going back and forth, pushing in, going back and forth, and then raising my brows up and hitting that mark, that end zone. So here's where my unevenness becomes more visible to me. Because I have that lighter color under the brow, I can see if one has more light area than the other. So I know if I need to bring it up on either side. I'm going in with Cocoa Bear. I might have said that first color was Cocoa Bear, but that was Creme Brûlée. This is Cocoa Bear from Makeupgeek. And I'm just pushing that into the outer corner of my eye. So once again, I'm not going over that end zone. And then instead of kind of just blending back and forth, following the natural curve of my eye, which is going down, I am slowly making swift motions out towards the temple. So always keep the temple area in mind, that's where you want to aim. And if you feel like that's too much color for you on the outer corner, just go back in with a blending brush that has nothing on it and blend it out. So on the other side, I'm just kind of sticking right here on the outer corners. And don't worry if it gets a little bit below the end zone, because we can clean that up later. Now, eyeliner. I know this is where a lot of people struggle. And so if you feel like having a wing out here isn't gonna work for you, you could always do this guide with the same shade that you're going to be doing your crease color with. So we just used Cocoa Bear. So instead of using a dark brown like I did, you would have gone in to Cocoa Bear instead originally and done this wing. So because I knew I was gonna do liner, that's why I went and used a dark brown. But you don't have to use a dark brown. You can use something, again, that will blend right into your crease colors. I actually wanna use a black liner, and I'm gonna use a powder liner. Just any black powder liner will do. And what I do is I go right across the lash line, because if you have a hooded lid, you don't want to do too much eyeliner on your actual upper lash line, because you have such a limited space anyway. So I either recommend just don't doing eyeliner at all, but I know I always feel like unfinished without eyeliner. I say my recommendation is to get as close to the root of the lashes as possible. And then here's my problem with this eye, is that it's so hooded right here that I often struggle to make the wing. So doing a powder is a lot easier, first of all, than using a liquid or a gel. And if you want to use a liquid or a gel, I have a lot of practice with it, so I can do it now, but as I get older, my eyes get more hooded, it does get more difficult. So I am finding that using a powder is much easier, and then if I want a darker look, I'll just go over that with a gel or a liquid. It's all about having that guide. It's like going back to when you were a kid and you had training wheels on your bike. So now that I have this angle here and I've gone down to here, then a hand mirror is your friend. Trust me, when you are trying to look straight into a mirror, it makes things so difficult because your head is going every which way. A hand mirror, especially one that maybe is magnified, is really helpful. So all I'm doing now is I've got that guide, right? And I am angling up towards that guide. And then I'm filling in. And then I still feel like I have this little hook where it's kind of come in and then it's straight. So again, with this brush, I'm gonna open my eye slightly and just press it in there so that when my eyes open, you don't see any gaps. Now the thing about doing a wing or even a slight one, it doesn't have to be as long as this one is, just even doing a slight one is going to help lift the eyes upward. Now for the lower lash line, the best look, the most flattering look is going to be just lining very, very softly with a light neutral shade. So I'm just taking a pencil brush and I'm just running that along the lower lash line. But what if you are going out at night or you want to try something a little bit more dramatic, you want to have some dark smokiness under the eye? Now what I recommend is taking a flat brush. This one is a Sigma Flat Definer E15. And taking that dark color, whichever one you want to use, I'm going to take this deep plum burgundy shade from Colourpop called Razy, R-A-Z-Y. And I am just going to place that on the outer corners. And I'm going to make sure that I meet up with that outer corner. You don't want to have a gap right here. So I'm not coming all the way in with the dark color. I am sticking just to the outer corners, making sure it's connected and always lifting up. Now let's see how I did. And what I've noticed is that I have a little bit more color here than on this side. And my eyeliner comes in a little further on this side than it does on this side. So now using this photo as my guide, I'm going back in with that creme brulee, and I know which side is which because of the mole on my face. The side with the mole needs a little bit more color, and then my liner needs to come in just a little bit more. Take another photo. So now to me, it looks even. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do this too many times though, because if you do that, you will end up like that meme you might have seen on Instagram or just on Pinterest maybe, where you start off with a thin line and then all of a sudden you end up like with an entirely blacked out eye from just trying to make both sides perfectly even. So my recommendation is to do this twice, once to check, two to check after you make corrections, and then leave it alone. Nobody's gonna notice if it's a little bit off. And of course, some of you at home might be thinking, that is just way too much effort. I can't be doing all of this. I promise you it just takes a second, and it's only necessary for, maybe evenings out or for work, just take the extra 2 minutes to make sure that everything is even. But on a day-to-day basis, do I care if my eyeshadow is perfectly even or how, even if I'm wearing eyeshadow, or do I even do this much liner? I don't. I would probably even forego liner most days if I'm just running errands. But this is more for you if you're, having a date night, or even, like I said, for work, if you like to put a little makeup on for work. These are just some tips just to help you improve the overall look of your eyes and give them a more youthful appearance, a more uplifted appearance, and a more even appearance. Another critical step, in my opinion, is to use a lash curler. Some of you might be blessed to already have curled lashes. Some of you might already know this and have been curling your lashes for years. Some of you might be intimidated by lash curlers, but I promise you, they really do open up the eye. And especially if you make a point to curl those outer ends really well, you will get even more of an uplifting effect. So I like to take my lash curler. This one is by Surratt Beauty, and I like to pump it maybe 5 or 6 times, and then hold it, and then remove it. And then mascara, of course, is so important. And as with everything else, we're focusing on the outer corners and lifting them up as much as possible, giving them a winged effect. This Marc Jacobs mascara is expensive, but it is so good. So finally, a lot of you knew that this part was coming. One of my favorite things to do, my biggest tricks for lifting a downturned eye, is to apply some lashes to the corners of the eyes. Now, this is different than applying lashes to a hooded eye, because some hooded eyes are almond shaped. Not all hooded eyes have a turn down on the ends, and some, it just depends. The placement of the lashes really depends on your eye shape, but if yours are like mine and they come down at the ends and they're kind of rounded inner corner and outer corner, it is much nicer. It's a much nicer effect to place a couple lashes, whether they're individuals or clusters, on the ends. Now, if you're saying at home, Risa, I just cannot do lashes, trust me, if you practice and you do corners like I am showing you, I really think that you will be addicted to them. And what I mean by corners is, I don't really love the clusters that you can buy as much as I like just taking a strip lash. And this is one that I got really inexpensively from a beauty supply store. I think it was $1. You wanna make sure that they're wispy. And the reason why you wanna make sure that they're wispy is they look more like real lashes. When you have lashes that are just kind of spiky or just kind of straight across, they don't look like natural lashes. These wispy ones are very natural looking. So what I do with these is I cut them almost in half, where I leave maybe 4 clusters. And then I take a little lash glue. A brush on lash glue is so much easier for most people than a squeeze tube. And then I just pop these on the outer corner. And you want to make sure that you're using a lash that is curled up. Some false lashes, they kind of go straight out. Even if you go in with them from above, they still kind of stick straight out. So don't hesitate to use your lash curler on the false lashes. And when you're trimming the lashes or you're placing them on the eye, make sure you do that smiling trick where you just smile into the mirror and make sure that none of the lash is hanging down. I know that just looked really corny, me kind of smiling like that, but yeah, you wanna make sure that they aren't hanging down. You wanna either push them up or trim them so that they're just shy of the end of your lash line. So believe me, when I say I totally understand if even putting corner lashes or individual lashes is not gonna be something that you're gonna do every day, that's fine. Just using a really good volumizing mascara and focusing on the outer corners is going to make a difference. Just adding that little extra maybe is something you would wanna do for date night or a special occasion. But for me, it just, once you get the hang of it, it really does only take a couple seconds, and you can reuse these lashes over and over. I just gently remove them at the end of the night, peel off a little bit of the glue, put them back in a case, you can reuse them. These inexpensive ones, usually for about 5 or 6 times. So as always, I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something. Feel free to ask any questions in the comment section. You can also tweet me at Risa Does Makeup. You can ask me questions on my Facebook page. Not very many people know I do have a Facebook page that is Risa Does Makeup, and everything will be down in the description bar. All the products I used, the brushes that I used, but it's really not about, in this case, the products so much or the colors. It's more about the placement and that little step of checking yourself in your selfie. So for those of you who have never taken a selfie before, it's time to do that, especially if you have, if unevenness is your biggest issue, because that will really help you in the end to make sure everything is even. So thank you guys again so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.